Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morgan off the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by George Eichhorn and Smoking Jeremy B. And, tonight, read it in the title, the Detroit Lions are sniffing the playoffs, and they're doing it after a really convincing win over the Minnesota Vikings. With that said, you know what? We have another one in the chat room. We'll go out there and mention Will Vogel. It says, "Hi, guys. The Lions are a very good, sneaky team." Well, I don't think they're sneaking by anybody now. They may have started out 1-6, but they're 6-7, so they're not sneaking at all, and they're getting a lot of their due on national TV. With that said, let me go over the storylines tonight. We're only going to be talking about the Lions this evening. Lions with a win over the Minnesota Vikings 34-23. With that said, Jeremy, why don't we go out there and give us a basic summary of this contest?
Sorry.
He's chewing on something, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
When he gets it down the hatch, as my grandma's used to say, then he can be chewing on the Minnesota Vikings. All right. But that said, George, why don't you give me your comments on it? Well,
When they started selling standing room only tickets, you knew they were going to have a huge crowd. So they had over 66,000. The place was rocking as usual. When the Lions are playing well, the place rocks and rocks and rocks. Vikings came in 10-2, but the odd part was they weren't favored. One of the strange twists that you'll see from Vegas and the odds makers had Detroit favored, and they read into it very well. That the Lions were on a roll, and they favored the Vikings to lose. I mean,
I think that's the first time in NFL history that a team that was 5-7 went out there. It was favored over a team that was 10-3.
It was very unusual.
It was the first time in the Super Bowl era. They made sure they said it that way,
right?
Because it happened once before, pre-Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, of course, goes back to 1967, I believe.
Right.
No, I mean, it was everything was laid out perfectly for Detroit to come up with the victory, and they did. I really am impressed by the job that Dan Campbell and his staff have done.
Yeah. Take it from there, Jeremy.
All right. The Lions never trailed the Vikings in this game. The Vikings tied it up at the end of the first and could never play catch up again after that. We shut them down in the second quarter. We scored in the second quarter, which is our lull quarter. That is the one quarter, and it's been ever since Barry Sanders has been here. The second quarter has been a lull for the Lions. We have not been able to put points up on the board in the second quarter, especially not touchdowns. Maybe a field goal or two, but we weren't putting up 7 points. We scored every quarter. We scored convincingly. We got Hutchinson had 8 pressures with a sack and a half or 2 sacks. I can't remember which it is. Where is it at? Oh yeah, he was given a sack and a half. So a sack and a half plus 5.5, that equals 7, right?
Do I hear defensive rookie of the year? Are they
and still tied with Sauce Gardner with 2 interceptions as a rookie? The only rookie with more interceptions than Sauce Gardner and Aiden Hutchinson is Kirby Joseph.
Lions.
All right, so let me
Lions.
Let me go over a couple here first of all. Excuse me. Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. And if I went over it too fast, guess what? I will go a little bit slower as the ticker comes in front of me. Once again, Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. And we have a lot of other podcast providers that we don't get into. These are the major 4. This show is also being seen on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, hit the subscribe button. It's as easy as that. If you're watching it, I believe you can actually go ahead and hit the subscribe button on your screen. But there's a couple ways to do it. With that said, I want to go to my first main point. I just touched on it. The Lions, like I said, have won 5 of 6 after starting out 1-6, and now they're currently 6-7. George, what's your take on that?
Well, it's an amazing turnaround. We've talked about it before on this show on Monday night and how things changed once they fired that defensive coach. They got rid of T.J. Hawkinson, and everybody was panicking. Remember, they were panicking, guys. Oh well, we don't want to lose that early round draft choice, meaning the Lions draft choice, not the LA Rams. The fans that were calling for that look like fools right now. The team is really playing well. They have bought in. They have bought into what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and his staff have done, and that is to wear this team on their sleeves. I shouldn't just say his sleeve. The Lions are playing with momentum, with enthusiasm, with character. They're not taking any gruff, and like Hutchinson and other players have said, don't put that SOS crap in our face. We're not buying it. We're not the same old Lions that people have seen year after year after year. Of course, the true test is going to come. What can we do in the final 4 games of the season? 3 of them on the road. We'll get to that later. But my take is that this team is for real. This team is for real, and the media and the national press and the national television stations are watching them now. And maybe they'll even put the Lions into some flex scheduling, or even that Green Bay game, if it's a meaningful game, will go into a prime time.
Do it.
Why?
Don't do it. Don't do it. They've got a chip on their shoulder from not being in any primetime games. Remember Dan Campbell? He goes, I love it. My guys get the second most rest this season. Let's keep it that way.
That's funny.
Don't give us a prime time.
Well, hold on.
Them.
Let's talk about the records. Now you really got me going. So let's go back to the 5-6 / 6-7 thought 1-6 when it began. All right. What's your take on that? Because you guys are already segueing me where I plan to go anyways. All right, Jeremy, focus on that.
I said this preseason, this was a 7 to 10 win team. They are twice as talented as they were last year. Last year, we got 3 wins and a tie. According to Vegas, that's 3.5. It was a push on the bet. I know I made it. But anyways, you realize I'm 1 win and 2 Bears losses from cashing out for $783 on my 4-game parlay on the over-under for the season.
Well, good for you. That'll help you pay a few bills. All right. That'll help you pay a few bills. That's George. We're not talking about the games later. We're talking about
I don't think that Jeremy, you must have been on something, because you were drinking that Kool-Aid if you thought this team was worthy of 10 wins or even anything above 7.
I said I knew they were going to win over 7.
Well,
I knew.
I don't think
they are twice as talented. They're better coached than they were on offense last year. Last year, the first 10 weeks, the offense was the Achilles heel of this team. Was it not?
I agree. The offense came
out. And the defense
smart.
wasn't good either. And then all of a sudden, we get rid of Anthony Lynn.
Right.
What started happening?
They started
the
winning.
Offense all of a sudden goes, the offense started to play better. We damn near beat the Bears on Thanksgiving that time.
Oh, yeah.
Then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
We beat the Vikings.
Well,
boom. We smoked the Cardinals. A number 1 seed at that time. There has never been a team that was slated to get the number 1 pick overall, beat a number 1 seed, and the Lions did it twice last year. That is what gave me hope coming into the season. You had that fire at the end of the year that they all got fired up. They were ready to rock. They were all fired up and talking about all the rookies and all the interviews, but talking about the rookies, all the players were super excited about it. I said, because they're twice as talented as last year, the basement should be 7 wins.
Okay, well,
3.5 times 2 is 7.
All right, thank you for the explanation.
Yeah,
I didn't see it that way, but
and thanks for the math too. At least I know you know how to go ahead and do the 3.5 times 2 equals 7. With that said, we're going to go to the remaining schedule. Okay, Lions get the Jets on the road. They might as well call the Meadowlands their second home because they're playing 2 games there. They beat the Giants. Hopefully,
it's no longer the Meadowlands, though. It's the MetLife Stadium, and it's no longer the MetLife Stadium.
We're not
going to
fall for those phony titles.
Hey, Jeremy said
it is the field of knees.
I do not give advertising unless they put money in my pocket. That's my rule, Jeremy. So we're going to go back to what I said, sir.
Okay.
What Icorn would say, sir. Okay.
Sir.
George made it very popular while we were doing this stuff earlier in the game.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay, there you go. I don't know if I do a lot. But All right, but anyways, they will be playing in the Meadowlands for the second time this year, and the Jets on the road at 7-6. And then we'll talk about the rest of the schedule, and then you guys can both analyze it. So the Jets are the only team of this group which is over 500 at 7-6. Then they get the Carolina Panthers on the road December 24th, who are 5-8 and looking pretty good and in their own playoff race. The Chicago Bears on January 4th, which by the way is my anniversary. And then, of course, and they're 3-10, and then the Green Bay Packers, whom George Eichhorn probably fares, who played on my wedding day 6 years ago, and they're 5-8 on January 8th. So, with that said,
okay,
with
They're
all
special.
pardon
Well,
me.
They're special this year.
I
Special ed.
can start out. I can start it out, Scott. You know, there's a guy Kornacki who makes his prediction for the path to the playoffs, and he gave Detroit a 45% chance to beat the Jets. He gave Detroit a 58% chance to beat Carolina. He gave us a 68% chance to beat the Bears and a 41% chance. I have no idea where he gets these from to beat Green Bay. All I'm saying is that the Lions have a 50% or better chance to beat all those teams right now. And I would say it's even greater. You know, the Jets are following the footsteps of the Giants. They're doing the New York shuffle. They're folding. They're phonies. Some of
Plus,
these teams.
Mike White got hurt yesterday.
Right. And, you know, they're following in the footsteps of the damn Yankees even. I mean, the New York shuffle here is going on. So to answer your question, Scott, I think Detroit has the most favorable schedule out of the teams that they're fighting with, which would be Washington, the Giants, and Seattle right now. The Lions had the most favorable schedule. Do you not agree, Jeremy?
Yes, they have the most favorable schedule. The weakest schedule was the Washington Commanders overall. It was actually the whole NFC East was weaker than the Lions' schedule. Even their first place team had a weaker schedule than the Lions. Why? That division played itself twice, and they thought they were that bad. But as we saw, right now, it's them and the AFC East are the two best divisions in football.
All right, so let me make a point here that George alluded to, whether you like it or not, Jeremy. Okay, I don't care because I've known Eichhorn forever, and we definitely know it between us. If there is a game that could get flexed, it is definitely the Lions and the Packers. I believe that for two reasons, Jeremy. Number one, who in their right mind would not flex the Lions and the Packers with the rivalry Detroit and Green Bay, let alone the fact that the Lions have a chance to get in the playoffs to begin with. So the Lions and the Packers are an attractive flex because of the rivalry and the Lions getting in the playoffs. Now, I will tell you this, though, Jeremy. Candy and I went to a game at Lambeau Field that was actually moved to national television for the divisional title. So I think as much as Dan Campbell would like to say, hey, I don't like the primetime games, maybe not.
No, that isn't what he's saying.
Let me finish, okay? When I'm just making sure that I have a chance to say a thing or two here, even though I like it when you dominate everything, it's because you're a pretty colorful cat here, okay, a little lion cat. But the way I look at it is I think that this would be a mega ratings boom with the Lions and the Packers anyways. Yeah, Dan Campbell likes the extra rest. You won't need it during the last game of the year. You know, during the year is one thing, but knowing you're the last game, you're not sure where you're going to travel anyways, that'd be great. The Lions are getting more national notoriety, something they're not accustomed to doing. So, yeah, I think I definitely believe, to me, that the Lions and the Packers of this group would most likely be the one that could get flags. I don't see Carolina on.
No, I agree with you, Scott. You're not going to get Carolina. You're not going to get, well, it's too late for the Jets. You can't flex this late. And the other one is stinky, the Bears. Although, watch out for the last game between Washington. Guess who they play? The Cowboys.
Well, that's okay.
That'll be flexed.
Yeah, right. I mean, hey, listen, Jeremy, if Washington Cowboys, then we'll go ahead and send you a beer back in Michigan. George will make sure you get it. I don't know what you drink. It doesn't matter.
I'm not saying it won't be. What I'm saying is Dan Campbell doesn't give a crap. The reason why he doesn't give a crap is the rest of the team. And I mean rest as in get healthy rest. That's why this team is getting healthy. that bye week being early while we were very injured at the time, that helped this team get to this point right now. Romeo Aquara played 5 to 10 snaps as I predicted. JMO was in his 10 to 20 snaps as I predicted. But nobody knew that his first catch was going to be 40 plus yards and a touchdown.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Nobody.
I mean, hey, listen, you know what? I think it's a fun topic to talk about because in this day and age, okay, where everybody's betting on everything anyways, you might have bets out there which game's going to get flags. And one of these days, I'm going to bring some of these gambling people on here, throughout Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever. I'd like to get some of these people. I'm looking for different
and
stuff.
the thing about Dan Campbell is, hey, watch out. Okay, you can enjoy it this year. Okay, Jeremy or Campbell can.
Right.
But next year, when you see that schedule come up, you better damn well believe the Lions are going to be on more than just Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah,
I'll guarantee you right now they're going to be on 3 times next year.
TV. we were on national TV 3 times last year.
Well,
after an abysmal year with Matt Patricia and company.
Don't play that media card and practice card, okay? Because first of all, if they play Green Bay, that means nighttime. So the players are getting 7 hours extra rest. If they play Green Bay at 8 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock, you know what I'm saying?
Let's say the Eagles falter and lose another game down the stretch, right? And Dallas is winning out. Washington is on the cusp of making the playoffs. They have to beat Dallas to get in. I guarantee you that game would get flexed to prime time before the Green Bay Packers and Lions, because the only draw that we would have is if Aaron Rodgers is playing in that game. We lose one more game, he's sitting out the season. He already said it. If Packers lose one more game, he's sitting out the season once they're mathematically eliminated.
You bring up a good point. Or Aaron Rodgers says this is my final game in the NFL, which I don't think will be.
Well, bear in mind when they played each other last year, Jordan Love played over at Ford Field anyways the last game of the year. And now I hear there's talk that Jordan Love really wants to get out of Green Bay anyhow, but we're not going to get into that. We have a lot more to get to. I want to make sure I touch everything. So that
speaking of which, do you know why they pulled Aaron Rodgers after they said in the Friday interview, oh, he's going to play the whole game because we don't want him to get rusty for the playoffs? Remember that speech?
Right. That's true.
Do you know why? Do you know why they pulled him? Because we had 12 QB hits in a quarter and a half, and they said, oh, my God, they're going to kill the son of a bitch.
Yeah, well, thankfully this is not an FCC sanctioned show, Jeremy.
Sorry, sir.
Scott, Will weighed in with another comment here.
Yeah, well,
he made a few comments
about Dan Campbell.
Right. Well, he says he loves Dan Campbell, and he's a coach that you run through walls with. So he gives everything, guy. Yeah, these are things. I'm glad that Will can identify those. All right, but nevertheless, it'll be interesting. I usually get all these notes from the NFL through NFL communication, so I know which ones are being flexed. And when the time does that, I go ahead and get it. I'll definitely pass it on to everybody.
I got you. I know. I'm just saying, if that situation is between Washington and Dallas, and Detroit just has to win a game to get in, they will put that Dallas-Washington game ahead of it, is all I'm getting at.
Got 2 great rivalries between Detroit and Green Bay and Dallas and Washington. You're not going to go wrong ratings-wise with either of them. It just depends what they are. But again, this will be a TBD. Okay, with that said, let's go over a couple little minor points here. And the next thing we're going to talk about is, how does that Stafford-Goff trade look now? Jeremy, you seem to be the authority on this one a lot.
Okay. It's looking like Stafford will either have to miss all of next year or retire, because it depends on whether he gets the spinal fusion in his neck to correct the injury. If he decides he wants to do physical therapy, he's out at least another season. If he gets the spinal fusion, he may never play football again because he won't be able to turn his head. So if you ask me, in the long, you remember we said there's 3 parts of a trade. That's what they say in baseball: the short, the mid, the long. They won the short. They got their Super Bowl. We won the mid because Goff's still playing, and he's playing at a level better than Stafford did last year at this time.
Okay.
He has less interceptions, almost as many touchdowns, almost as many yards, and he doesn't have a Cooper Kupp going for 2,000 yards in one damn season.
Right.
Oh, I mean, so we're winning the mid because Stafford's injured and he's not playing. And when he was playing, it was pretty bad.
Right.
It was really bad. He was
Well, right
leading the
now,
league
though,
in interceptions at 17 at the time before he got hurt.
well, right now his receiving core is very depleted. Anyways, Cup is out for a while. Allen Robinson hasn't played his capabilities, and now he's hurt. So but yeah,
Allen Robinson hasn't played to his abilities for 3 years. Go back and look at Chicago. He was last in separation the year before at Chicago. He's last in separation out of all the wide receivers in the league again this year. The only one with less separation than him is the one that opened his fat mouth to piss off the Lions, Jalen Reagor.
Okay. All right. So with that said, Jeremy, at the moment, where are we looking at with the Rams draft choice? Do you have any idea? Is it 4 now or 3?
It's fourth. It's fourth still. If Baker Mayfield keeps saving that team, I'm going to wring his neck.
It's nice to know. And thankfully, he's probably going and that year here in Michigan. All right, George, some thoughts.
Well,
I'll drive there.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to rule out Stafford right now coming back, not this year, but in the future. So, yeah, I mean, on the paper, the Lions do look like they've got a better deal going for themselves, obviously. I mean, if things stay the same. Let's just talk about the fact that, Goff has got some good guys around him now. Chark and St. Brown and Josh Reynolds and our boy Williams, who came out of nowhere. And we're going to talk more about individuals, but I'm just saying that the Lions have done a nice job surrounding Goff with some talent at the wideout position. So I'm really happy that Goff is happy here, because he is.
Oh.
You see those interviews, you see that enthusiasm from Goff in the huddle, on the sidelines, and in the locker room after the game, and of course on HBO in the preseason. So what we're talking about here is a guy that you can go to town with, you can go to work with on this team. You don't have to start looking for a rookie high up in the draft, even though I thought they would have to do that in the offseason. It's not looking like that's going to be likely right now.
Okay, well, here, let's go over one other brief point, then I'm going to do a little bit of name dropping.
Sure.
Right? And this will be a very brief segment, 2 little mini ones, all right? Number 1, we'll talk about the touchdowns the Lions ended up getting. They did get one from Chark. I saw him play it with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I knew the only problem with DJ was staying on the field. Otherwise, he'd be a stud. Number 2, Josh Reynolds, you guys alluded to him. And Jamison Williams with that 41-yard pass. I think it was his only reception of the day, I believe, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And then finally, Justin Jackson. So, Jeremy, I'll start with you first. Give me your thoughts about the touchdown beneficiaries yesterday, and keep it very brief because I'm going to spend some time on the name dropping segment.
Okay. That first touchdown that went to Jamison Williams, you could see that secondary was missing Harrison Smith, because that strong safety didn't know where he was supposed to be. He ran up under. And Jamison Williams was so wide open, he stopped, turned around, and waved at Goff, saying, "I'm here." And he drops it in, and then he ran in for 3 yards, because that's how far everybody was away from him. The yards of separation on that play was 17 from the safety that was supposed to be there.
Right.
Unbelievable. And you know what? What I liked, guys, is what he did. Now, I will say this. He bypassed his teammates for a celebration in the end zone and went looking for his daddy.
That was awesome.
To give that kid a ton of credit. What he did was commendable. That first touchdown, first catch in his career, he went looking for his father. He actually did find him. Then there was plenty of time to celebrate with his teammates. But let me ask you this, guys. You never see that. In the NFL, that's always about me, and my teammates. Don't get me wrong. It's good to celebrate with your teammates. But I loved it. I loved it. He was looking for his father in the stands to give his dad that ball.
Well, let's make the reality here, okay, about Jamison Williams. The kid's been through a lot. The Lions made a gamble, and it worked. They did. They knew it's one thing to trade up at number 12. It's another to try to hit a home run on a wide receiver who goes in the league injured.
Wait. I got a question, though. What did we turn that Rams pick into? Jamison Williams and Josh Pascal.
Right. No, I know. That's what you're. Thanks for making my point for me.
Woo!
Yeah. So yeah, no, it worked out quite well that you go out there and you trade up with a divisional opponent, by the way. And I'm going to get to that in again moment. So hang tight, Jeremy.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got another one of
I
divisional
know,
trade to
but let's
talk
focus
about.
on the task at hand here. Let's stay on track. Okay, but so Williams makes out like a bandit with his first touchdown pass. Okay, worked out real well. And let's not forget the contributions of DJ Chark, Josh Reynolds, and Justin Jackson. We're going to leave it at that. Okay, because it's good that they were able to have one touchdown apiece that obviously led to the end result. So, all right, now we'll go back to where I know Jeremy's headed. The other trade, TJ Hawkinson, not a good return for the guy. Okay, so now you're nodding your head. Now you can speak, please.
His name is no longer TJ Hawkinson. It's not TJ Hawkin who. It's TJ Droppinson. He had 4 drops in that game. He had 6 catches for 77 yards, a 12.8 average. Yeah, that's great. But when they needed him to catch it when it meant the most, third downs, especially that one that hit him right in the hands a yard and a half away from the sideline. When he dropped that pass, I said, and that's why we traded you.
Oh, I don't know what stats you're looking at. I got him for 8 targets and 6 catches. That's 2 misses. You said 4. Where'd you get 4
I saw
from?
4. I saw 4.
Well, on the official stat sheet on the NFL, it's 8 targets and 6 receptions.
Yeah, and how many targets did they say for Justin Jefferson?
Well, talk to me about that. Where was the Lions secondary covering Jefferson yesterday? Nowhere.
Well, no, that's not true because Okuda was in for 2 of those plays. He didn't get a catch. Then
11?
when they put AO and Mike Hughes on him, that's another story.
Okay.
I noticed we were running zone to try to help AO be the player he was last year when we ran more zone. It didn't work. You know why? Because AO is busted up here mentally somehow. The emergence of Jeff Okuda, I think, got in his head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
he was our number one corner.
I'll give you that.
Well, nevertheless, it's not uncommon for a guy to have a great effort be on the losing end of it. I've seen that time and time again. And obviously, he did know Justin Jefferson will set a new franchise record for receptions in a game. So, if nothing else, you know what? And the
reception yards in a game. He set the franchise record for reception yards in the game at 223, which he beat. You said receptions.
Oh,
it was reception yards.
If I can get 223 receptions, and my goodness, I'm really good. I don't know what league I'm playing in. Maybe
right. I want to know what quarterback has an arm to throw it that much in one game. But anyways,
well, no. Let me finish my outrageous thought. Maybe they're playing in the CFL. Okay, not the Canadian Football League, but the Chinese Football League. So there you go. And there's no such thing. So I
that being said, the gentleman that he beat, everybody said, oh, it's got to be Randy Moss. Oh, it's got to be Chris Carter. No, it's from 1976. It was Scotty James who set the franchise record at 212 versus the Detroit Lions.
Of course. They always beat the Lions, the purple people eaters.
No, there was a losing game the game too.
Oh. Jeremy, I can't pull one on you.
Yeah, no, you're not dealing with a certain bird here. This guy knows his stuff. Okay. That's why I devoted an entire show because I knew Jeremy was going to pile some stuff up.
But Scott, you talk about players. Okay. Yeah. Cook, this big running back, Cook, 15 attempts for 23 yards, 1.5 average. Okay, so
it gets better. It gets better.
I get your point.
Alex Madison had 2 carries for negative 1 yard.
They let Jefferson have a field day, and they shut down Cook. He was nothing.
All right. Well, here let's put a bow on this thing. Okay, the Lions are now 2-0 in fleecing the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, they got Williams, and they also got rid of Hawkinson, and they got draft capital, and they're going to get production, and that's where this one ends. All right. Now we're going to do some name dropping.
Sure.
All right, and we're going to do some name dropping, and we'll start with Ben Johnson. Will he be with the Lions next year, knowing that when the Lions get a pretty good coach, and this is an offense? And I want short answers here so we can cover them all. So Jeremy first, okay. Will Ben Johnson be with the Detroit Lions next year? Yes or no?
If it's a yes or no, I can't say yes. I think it's maybe at this point.
All right. Well,
It's
I'll
in
let
the middle.
maybe. Okay, I'll include that as a choice. All right.
Because
So
I think he's going to get some head coach offers after how well he's coached this offense.
and that's what Dan Campbell wants. He wants his assistant coaches to get head jobs. Don't be surprised if Deuce Staley at some point gets consideration too.
I'm going to keep it.
But you know what? I don't have him on the list, so I'm not going to do it. So you're saying maybe for Ben Johnson. What about you, George?
I'm going to say no because typically those Lions assistants were interviewed like 1 year, but they're not selected that same year. So I'm going to say he's going through the first round of those kind of interviews, possibly, but he'll stay here one more year at least.
So Lions.
Oh, so yes, he'll be here is what he's saying.
Yes.
He said, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, so
stay.
Lions jobs are based on continuity, and we need to see this instead of this instant gratification where they won 5 of 6 and they're looking awfully good. All right, the next one we're going to have, this is pretty fun because when this guy came out, there were a lot of receivers that came out in that draft, and I'm referring to Jalen Waddle and Jamar Chase, and a lot of Lions fans wanted those two guys, but they opted to make the smarter move in the offensive lineman. So let's talk about Penei Sewell. And yes, he got an 8-yard pass and he caught it. I'm sure that, all right, Smoking. In terms of Ben Johnson, though, I think I would go the maybe route too. It would take an incredible job for him to leave, but I say he stays another year. But maybe.
And he's going to get paid to be here too. He's earned a raise.
Okay, well, I have a feeling he'll get it, but that wasn't the question. Okay.
No, I know.
All right, but anyways, we go back to Penei Sewell and the fact that his first reception was an 8-yard, and I love the way he went throwing his arms around and the enthusiasm that they ran it, and that was a key play in the ball game. So, but that said,
that was a game-sealing play of the ball game because that first down allowed them to push down for the next field goal, if I remember right.
Right.
So when he caught that pass, I wasn't just impressed at the fact he caught the pass. I wasn't just impressed with the play call. It was how he caught the pass. He high-pointed that football like an actual receiver or tight end. Yeah. And then he did the smart thing. He ran to the sticks. He saw people were getting ready to push him out. He said, screw it, I'm just going to fall down.
Okay.
I mean, that was brilliantly smart. The kid's way more athletic than everybody gave him credit for, and everybody said this was a Hall of Fame tackle talent. Now we see why. You don't have that type of athleticism, usually out of a tackle being a receiver eligible.
Right. Okay, George, Penei Sewell.
Well, I mean, he had a great time in this, and it was a great catch. You're right, Jeremy. Just surprised the hell out of me too. I mean, the referee always opens the mic and says, so-and-so's in, as an eligible receiver, okay, all right. It happens all the time in football. No, never did I think that he was going to pull it off, but they have been practicing that play. They've been working on stuff like that. Hell of a job. Sewell looked great.
I got
hell of a job.
I got one more tidbit to add to that. And so as of this season, that means Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, who make combined almost twice as much as what Kenny Golladay was, has twice as many touchdowns as he has.
It's not saying much, but okay. All right, well, here.
Yes, it is. It's saying a lot. It's saying we saved $19 million. Brad Holmes is a genius.
Yeah, well, I knew that. When I said that doesn't say much. When you talk about Kenny Golladay, it's not like you're raising the bar high. All right, but we'll leave.
Will Vogel did some breaking news during the game there. Kyler Murray got carted off in the first quarter. It looked like an ankle injury. Yeah. So I gotta change my pick because I said New England would win. Now Colt McCoy's going in. It's a Texas quarterback. They're winning.
All right. Well, Will, thanks a lot for the breaking news. I figure we're going to get it one way or the other. While we're locked in, at least we got his eyes looking out there for us. Thanks, Will. And speaking of which, we'll use Will's comments here as a way to segue to our next guest. Yes, we all know Will, and the whole world knows it. Goff is playing out of his mind. Let me go over a couple basic numbers from yesterday. And I mean basic. Jared Goff, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's a pretty good day at the office for Mr. Goff. And And I've always believed that when the Lions made their trade, I actually wanted to see him make it straight up for Stafford alone. But Brad Holmes was so smart, he got draft capital and fleeced. I guess that's a great word we use when it comes to Brad Holmes a lot. But nevertheless, well, yeah, he is playing out of his mind. And with Jared Goff, 330 yards versus 3 touchdowns, you're stating the obvious, but I'd like to get this guy's comments up. So with that said, George, give me your thoughts on Jared Goff. I know he has 2 years left on his contract, and I have a feeling if the Lions are wise, they're going to lock him up and then maybe draft a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't think they have to go in the 1st round at all, but you never know. We'll see where at this point, I'm getting smarter. I'm not second guessing Brad Holmes ever again. Go ahead, George.
No, and I'm not going to second guess Goff either. 330 yards, like you said, Scott, 27 completions, no interceptions, 0. And once again, he is doing unbelievable in that department. He is not throwing wild. He is not throwing desperate. He's not getting intercepted. And that is good. To cut down on the turnovers, the fumbles, and things like that. So I believe that Goff is on a roll right now. He's playing some great football. Jeremy talked about it earlier on, and I agree that you stack him up against Stafford. There's no comparison right now. I mean, as far as what Goff is doing for the Lions right now, and working with guys that are they bought in. They bought into the Lions' offensive scheme, and Goff is playing some great football right now.
Okay, where you want to go, Jeremy?
Well, let's see. This season, let's talk about this season alone. He already has 109 yards more than last year with 3,352. He has 22 touchdowns. Do you realize that's tied for 5th in the NFL? And he has 7 interceptions, tied for 14th. His QBR, which I hate QBR because that goes by win-loss record, because he has 1 more loss than he has wins, it's a measly 61.2. But compared to last year, with 3 wins, that QBR was 52.
Right.
So that's a 9-point swing by QBR. He's completing passes. I think they said after that game he's up to 65.6% now. So 65.6% is a step back, but you got to look. How many games did he not have a single one of his starters on the field?
Right, exactly.
Good point.
And those were the ones that he had his worst completion percentage. Why? No one could get separation. Goff does not put the ball in bad places often. Yes, he's going to throw a pick or 2 a game. It's going to happen. Good quarterbacks do that when they're a good game manager, because eventually you got to throw it to somebody or you're going to get hit or you're going to fumble or something.
Yeah, I like what Vogel, where he goes Goff Most Improved Player this year for the award. I could go with that. So
I'm not sure about that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look at the year the guy's having. All right, let's transition over to Aiden Hutchinson. We all know that if there's anybody worthy of Defensive Rookie of the Year, to me, I definitely think Aiden's right there. All right, Jeremy, give me your thoughts about Aiden Hutchinson.
Well, after it actually ended up being 6 pressures yesterday, not 8. So you add the 6 with the 38 pressures he has now. He has 44 pressures. Do you realize that the worst team at pressure in the NFL is the Chicago Bears? They have less pressures than Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, you and those stats, Jeremy. That was a good one. All right, George.
He has 7.5 sacks. He has 12 QB hits. He has 2 interceptions. He has 8 tackles for loss.
All right, Mr. Statman.
All right, Mr. Statman. We'll turn it over.
Mr. Statman, I believe you. Okay, drinking that Kool-Aid. Aiden is doing well. He's playing
by the gallon.
Yeah, I know. You ought to. You know what you ought to do, Jeremy? Is you ought to at least change that color to blue when you start drinking it on the air when we're on live. Yeah. You should at least.
I'm going to get me some blue food coloring. Yes, there we go.
Blue, or get that blue Gatorade at the store. Sorry, Scott, I promoted a company. I don't know. Aiden is doing great. The kid is just so full of enthusiasm. He loves the game. He's a gamer. You know, Jeremy bought his jersey, 97. What more can I say? I mean, we want him to win that Rookie of the Year award, and the Detroit media better start pushing it, is all I got to say. Because although, you know, Scott, as well as I do, you've covered football a long time, and we damn know well that those LA and Detroit and Chicago and Philadelphia and Dallas markets always seem to have these players that win all these awards, and we don't get them in Detroit. So, yeah, the bandwagon is full, and Aiden is doing a hell of a job. And he's another one that was quoted after the game yesterday about saying, this is a different Lions team. Don't give us that SOS crap from previous years, because his dad and his mom, they lived through that SOS stuff, as we know. But anyways, Aiden is doing a hell of a job. And might I also say, his U of M team did a hell of a job without him this year.
Yeah, they did.
But I know that's another day and another show. We'll preview that game.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about Aiden Hutchinson is this. I'll go back to draft day. The Lions wasted no time getting their pick up there, and the NFL wasn't too happy because they got up there so fast. So the NFL was mad at the Lions because they wanted to string it out longer. The Lions said, I got my guy. We're taking him, and that's it. So, and, we all know what he's done.
With both of those picks in the first round.
Right, I know, but I'm keeping it on point, Jeremy, with Aiden, okay? And that being the fact that the Lions wasted absolutely no time getting them up there. And while everybody's out there interviewing, everybody's waiting, the Lions aren't drinking that Kool-Aid at all. Aiden Hutchinson, you're a guy. And having watched the Jacksonville game against Indianapolis, I thought the Jaguars were going to take him, but they took the kid out of Georgia instead. And you know what? Dropping the second isn't the worst thing in the world, knowing that you didn't have to leave the state, much less you're very familiar with the roads. All right. I got 4 more players I want to get to before we call it a night. Jeremy, I know you have another show shortly, so I want to make sure you get to that.
That's fine.
On time. So you mentioned him earlier, DJ Chark, 1 year, $10 million. I think it was a pretty good move. And if the Lions keep him healthy, there's no doubt they're going to retain this guy. I saw him firsthand. I knew he was good. I told everybody in Michigan he was good. And as long as and again, durability and I should point out too, even though it's not Lions related, T.Y. Hilton signed with the Dallas Cowboys today, just to let you know. So they're not going after Odell Beckham Jr., but the Cowboys landed T.Y. Hilton, who, by the way, I saw him play at FIU, and he was a heck of a player against Florida Atlantic. But all right, we'll keep on point. DJ Chark, 1 year, $10 million. I can definitely see the Lions bringing him back. Jeremy, some quick thoughts on DJ Chark.
I hope they do bring him back, and I hope it's kind of a little more of an extended prove-it deal this time.
Right.
Because then we don't have to look for anybody other than the contested catch guy. This guy can't stay healthy, so you want him to be a burner. You want him and Williamson taking the top off the safety zone. That's all you need him for.
Right.
Then everything underneath opens up. We got Amon-Ra, who's 6 foot. Quintus Cephas, if he could stay on the field, he's 6'1". We also have, who's the other guy we got that's semi-big? Oh, Josh Reynolds. He's what, 6'2", 6 foot?
Yeah.
We need a guy that's in between 6'3" and 6'6" with a bigger frame, 220 plus. That way he can withstand the hits from linebackers and the bigger safeties over the middle. So we got a big guy in the middle. And I'm not talking about a tight end. I'm talking about a wide receiver.
Right.
Now, if anyone who wanted Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle over Penei Sewell needs their head examined. Is all I got to say. You mentioned that earlier.
Well, don't say that to the Cincinnati Bengals. They feel like they made it all right, and the Dolphins feel like they made out all right with Jalen Waddle, so they don't need their head examined. Just
ask Joe Burrow if he's really happy with that first game when he threw 5 picks because he had so many people in his face. He had blurred vision.
Well, look at the body of work, Jeremy. Okay, I'm not worried about this game. Well, hold on. You made a statement. I'm going to go ahead and counter it. Okay. Don't tell me about Joe Burrow, who knew a lot more about Lamar Chase than anybody since they played for the LSU Tigers. So he's happy. He got. Hey, listen, this is one of those situations where it's out for everybody. The Dolphins got a good wide receiver, Jalen Waddle. Jamar Chase went to Cincinnati, and the Lions got the offensive lineman. Hey, I always like to see teams win when they make those picks because they put a lot of time and effort into them. So I'm with you part of the way on this one, Jeremy. But when 3 teams have a scouting department to find the right pieces to build their puzzle, that's a different story. So, but DJ Chark, yeah, I could see him extend and prove a deal. But you know what? I've always thought with the Lions' indigent ways of drafting wide receivers, well, you had Kelvin Johnson, Mike Williams, and Charles Rogers, that you can find these guys in free agency. I don't have to sit here and draft and reach too deep. Now, and there are some cases it works. And Jamison Williams, where I think the Lions had enough patience to make it work, and this kid's going to be a stud. But I'm never really a big. I don't like to see him drafted too much unless you know you got a sure shot like you did with Calvin Johnson. Wide receivers are hit and miss. You build
Oh,
around.
I don't want one in the first round. You know why? Because every single one of them in the first round, other than Cedric Tillman, is 6 foot or shorter and under 200 pounds. I said I want a big frame contested catch guy. The guy I want is Bryce Ford Wheaton out of West Virginia. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. He runs a 4.40.
Right.
It's Calvin Johnson on a bad team.
Okay, well, that's a good analogy. I like that. All right, George, some thoughts on DJ Chark.
I'm not here to predict that they're going to keep him. I have no idea what Brad Holmes is thinking. And Jeremy does bring up a good point. If they can find somebody that's a better receiver in the draft or on the other teams, free agency, they'll go about and do it. So I think it's way too early to say that they're going to bring Chark back. I wish they would. I think he deserves a chance. But again, we'll have to just see how things play out and whether, I'm happy with the other receivers they got right now. But I'm telling you what, if you can find somebody better than Chark, they might get him.
Okay, three more people to talk about. Three more people to talk. Go ahead.
The offer that I think would be right is anything under $15 million a year for 2 to 3 years. And the reason why I say that is look at what Christian Kirk and Zay Jones got down there with the Mr. Moneybags in Jacksonville, who evidently has more money than brains.
Well, let me tell you this. So you can say that, but let me tell you, when you're a bad team, you tend to overspend a little bit. The Tigers know when they brought in Pudge Rodriguez and Maglio Ordonez when they weren't very good. So teams that obviously are bad will reach a little bit, spend money. So I'm not going to knock the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, three more players to get to. Jamison Williams, we already talked about him a lot. All I can tell you is I love the way the Lions have eased him in a little bit with Jacksonville, and then his first catch is a touchdown, 41 yards. A brief thought here on Jamison Williams. Jeremy.
Speed. He feels the need for speed, and he has it in spades.
Okay, fair enough. George?
I don't know. They had like about a dozen guys, or maybe I don't know how many ended up catching, making receptions. I'm disappointed he only got, 2 passes thrown his way. One of them obviously was the touchdown, but it's still early on. He's still getting used to the system. And I like his speed. There's no question about it. I think he's an A+ right now as far as the potential.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the way he went downfield and then Goff lofted it, and that was an easy touchdown. When you look at easy touchdowns, what we saw from Goff all the way to Williams, that they don't get any easier than that. Okay, Jeremy alluded to this guy. We'll mention him, and then we'll wrap it up with Dan Campbell. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm telling you what, another mid-round pick who's doing awfully well.
Top 10 wide receiver, in my opinion, right now to top 15. You can't have a guy that gets he's been averaging 6 to 10 catches a game. He's averaging almost 92.3 yards per game and a touchdown per game. He's missed 3 games this year, so add it up. He's there. He's there.
Yet another great pick by the Lions' new regime in the middle rounds. George, go ahead.
Yeah, I give Lions credit again for taking St. Brown. I mean, 6 catches yesterday, 9 attempts, or 9 targets. He did not get a touchdown yesterday, but they didn't need him to get one because they had plenty of other weapons. He's one of the best receivers. I agree with Jeremy. I mean, he's come out of nowhere to be in that top 10 list, and I am very impressed with his potential.
Right,
he had a minor injury his senior year at USC. It kept him out for like a game and a half. He also dropped because he's only 6 foot tall, and people were afraid he wouldn't be able to make an impact in the NFL. According to PFN, NFL Network, and everything else, he was supposed to be a 2nd-round pick. The reason why we grabbed him and then traded up to get Derek Barnes is because Amon-Ra St. Brown was there, and they wanted him.
All right, well, we'll ask a question. I'll let you guys both answer it. I'm not big on awards, so I'll leave it to you guys to answer this one. That he thinks the Lions can win 3 awards, possibly Most Improved Player, Coach of the Year, and Defensive Rookie of the Year. All right, George, what's your comment on it? Do you think?
Well, he's referring to, of course, Goff and Dan Campbell and Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, again, and like I told you earlier, I mean, typically these awards don't seem to go to Detroit, and the Lions, of course, didn't deserve very many of them. Let's be honest, the last 40, 50 years. So all I'm saying is that the Lions have a chance. I agree, Will, with your estimation on that. Out of those three, I'm going to say the best chance is Campbell for Coach of the Year.
What about you, Jeremy?
We have to remember there's somebody else that could get that most improved player of the year and possibly comeback player of the year if the Lions make the playoffs. You got Jared Goff and Jeff Okuda.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
And then the defensive rookie of the year right now to me, it is Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
But
I'm with you
right
then.
now, I think he's second because I think either Tariq Woolen or Sauce Gardner's ahead of him. But now that the Jets are starting to lose, that scale's going to tip, as well as the Seahawks.
All right. So what I'm going to do
Okay.
there, Will, is of the three, I don't see them getting three. I may not even see them getting two. But if I had to choose one of the three, I'd go defensive rookie of the year for Aiden Hutchinson because I'm just saying of the three, we can disagree, George. I have no problem with it. I like Aiden Hutchinson, the intensity and the way this kid plays. He's a hard-nosed player. The Lions haven't had a player of that impact that's hard-nosed since Ndamukong Suh. That's mean and nasty and has character. So that's why I'm going to lean towards Aiden Hutchinson.
I get it.
Well, you can't say Ndamukong Suh. You know who he reminds me of?
Who?
Chris Spielman, who was drafted here and wanted to play here. Aiden Hutchinson is that guy. Ndamukong Suh was mean and nasty, but he did not want to be in Detroit, and we knew that as soon as his contract came up. He going on the first thing smoking to Miami for $367,000 more.
But you know what? I am going to say it because, number one, Jeremy, my thought process, even though you didn't want to be in Detroit, there was a mean and nastiness effect, the way he stepped on Rodgers and all that. So I like mean and nastiness and character. Now, I agree with you. They didn't want to be there. And he's moved around there a little. I mean, let's face it. He's capitalized on his monetary opportunities and done well for himself. And he has a Super Bowl ring to show for it too. So
and might have a second one after this season.
Right. Okay. So there you go. He went to the land of opportunity to get that thing called a ring. So I'm looking at Will's question in the sense that of the three.
Oh,
yeah. Well, whatever. It's okay. That's why we
have. No, I had an evil thought go through my mind. You know what he is? Sure. He's the NFL defensive tackle version of LeBron James.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Chasing rings.
You know what? Hey, listen, I have no problem with a guy chasing rings at all, for the most part.
Neither do I. It just popped in my head right there.
Yeah, but you're in this to win championships. You go where you can. And, nowadays, a lot of players don't stay in one place. So, of the three, I would go toward Aiden Hutchinson. Final topic of the night, we will talk about Dan Campbell. I mentioned it a time before, and I'll mention it one more time. Dan Campbell has discovered the field goal, and I'm not a math major, okay, but my father-in-law Fred Ebling is, okay, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in about 10 days or whatever, 12 days, whatever it is. But the Lions have discovered the field goal, and guess what? They're valued at 3 points. So when you're always losing by close margins, as long as you got a field goal, Dan, at least you can have it, and then you might win these games that you let get away. More power to Dan Campbell. So what are your thoughts, George, about the improvement of Dan Campbell?
No, I think he's improved a lot. I mean, game management, he called a great game. That was a masterful effort against Minnesota. He's had some really good improvements over the last couple of weeks with time management and things like that. The fake punt of CJ Moore, we didn't talk about it, but my God, the kid gained 42 yards on that fake punt. And then the pass to Sewell. I think that they're using some creativity, and they're also using more game sense as far as, like I said, timeouts, time management, and calling the plays the right way.
Well, here's the thing. The Lions are on house money. Nobody expects them to win. Why not dial up a bunch of trick plays and throw everybody off? Because when you're a team that has not been very good for a while, then they can play loose. They can. And then it keeps the other teams off balance. So I like the creativity, the trick plays. I've never been overly crazy when he went too many times on fourth down. But, you take it for whatever it's worth. And I think he's done a heck of a job, and he's grown as a coach, and I can only see the upside. So I'm going to give Jeremy the last word before we go out there and have exit identifications. All right, Jeremy.
I think the maturation of Dan Campbell started in the Dallas game.
Okay.
When we were getting housed by Dallas, he took the field goals when we were there. He didn't go for it as much on fourth down. You know how I know? The last 3 games we played, we've had over 20 first downs. And we are having an above 50% on third down and might go for it twice on fourth down. A couple of the games, we didn't go for it at all. So that being said, the maturation of Dan Campbell is happening right before our eyes, along with Ben Johnson. And
Right.
yes, we've had other offensive coordinators who had some of those plays that made you go, wow, that was electric. Last year at Caldwell with Jim Bob Cooter, he had some electric plays that season, that double flea flicker for the touchdown pass and stuff like that. Matt Patricia comes in and goes, hey, I really like you as offensive coordinator. You got to stop that crap. Darren Bevel comes in after they fire Jim Bob Cooter, does the same thing that first year, the year that we were so electric and Matt Stafford had his best passing games of his career, those first 8 games before the back injury. Next year, you got to tone that down.
Well, there you go.
It made no sense.
Well, I can tell you right now, based on everything you said, Jeremy, the Lions are getting flexed. Period. Bringing it to that, you just thought you just did is you got the Lions on national television, Jeremy, with your comments, and we know that nobody does better on stats than you do for sure, and you know how to talk your way into things. And remember, Mr. Jeremy, okay, I've been doing this a whole lot longer than you, and I love it when you learn from me. And you know what? I'm the teacher, and you're the pupil, and that's okay.
Fine.
And you know what? You're a good pupil because you're a quick learner. So the Lions are getting flexed, Jeremy. Okay. And we'll see what happens next week if I have to eat my words if they lose to the Jets. So with that said, Jeremy, why don't you give me a prediction?
We're not losing to the Jets. Okay. Mike White's out, which means they got to give one of the 2 guys that lost the locker room the starting job back, which means it's either Joe, I'm so old I can barely stand up, Flacco, or Zach, I want to do everybody's mom's Wilson.
Well, because
that's all he does is throw bombs and bang moms. It's all over about what happened at BYU, and he was very upset when he went there because he saw that their mascot was a cougar. He was upset because he found out it wasn't an older woman. It was the actual animal. God, but that being...
I'm not touching it. Just give me a score already. Come on.
34-24. Okay. Lions win.
Make sure you write that in your article, too, so I can cross-reference it next Monday night. All right, George, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say that the Lions are going to lose this one. They're going to go on the road and lose. They are going to lose by a score of 27-21.
Well, you know what? I'll give the Motor City Kitties the edge 33-27. So with that said, we'll see 6 points. Under 10, as it always is. So, all right, with that said,
Vogel says 31-20 Lions.
All right, well, obviously, Vogel went out there and said that he's an honorary Lions fan, so you might as well drink the Kool-Aid, right, Vogel? Yeah, okay, that's okay. And we appreciate
I'll share.
Yeah, we appreciate his activity in the chat room. He really lit things up and brought some pretty good subjects to the forefront. All right, Jeremy, with that said, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can find me at Smokin' Jeremy B on Twitter. You can also find me on www.southfloridatribune.com. At the Motor City Tribune heading is the list of authors where I write about our beloved Motor City Cardiac Cats. Then I'm also on Kneecap Biting with Smokin' Jeremy B. I'm on Fire Up Michigan every Monday right here. And I'm also now going to be on Sideline Sports.
Yeah, Sideline's a good partner with us, and JB Ellis and the rest of that group. I appear on a couple of their shows a week, and I'm actually now a consultant for Sideline Sports as well. So, You got a good group. All right, George, you have a lot to talk about. You don't have the normal exit, so go out there
Well,
and hang it up.
I did want to mention we are bringing breaking news on this show. Detroit Pistons guard Cade Cunningham gone for the year. He is going to have season-ending surgery. In case the folks watching our show have not heard, I'm an author. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, where you can reminisce about Van Patrick, Bob Reynolds calling the Detroit Lions games, and Jim Brandstatter and Frank Beckman, all the wonderful sportscasters we've had in Detroit. And there's also my dear friend who I've known for all these years, Scott Morganroth, is in there. Scott, you're interviewing Jimmy Connors, two of the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors. My book is available at the South Florida Tribune website. There's a link to it. And also you can get it from Arcadia or Amazon. You can find me on this show every Monday night. I write for the Motor City Tribune, South Florida Journal, and South Florida Tribune, and also the Detroit Monitor. You can reach me on gicorn@yahoo.com and on Twitter at SNGSports99.
All right. Well, we'll give it to you very brief here. We have a little bit to get to. Obviously, Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, you can go ahead and see this broadcast on the South Florida Tribune. So if you haven't subscribed, please go to youtube.com and hit the subscribe button for the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, and that'll work. If you want to email us, have any questions, comments, or you want to be a guest, contact us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. I always welcome new faces and for this as a new place. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Kudos to Candy Epley, who does a marvelous job putting the content up, the written content, as well as the broadcast. And last but not least, you can find me on Twitter at Tribune South. So South Florida Tribune is at Tribune South. So great show by George and Jeremy. And I love Jeremy's statistics. And and your enthusiasm is very infectious. So if there's anybody who has as much enthusiasm as Jeremy, reach out to me because this guy got it. So good job once again. And we use Jeremy on more than this show. And he always comes on other shows when we need him. So he's a real big asset to what we're doing. So, George, well, what can I say about you? I mean, we've only been at this for 43 years. So that's all, more than a lot of people have been around. So we pretty much know what we're doing. So, but meanwhile, on behalf of Smoking Jeremy B and George Eichhorn, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan, and we will catch you next Monday night. Goodbye, everybody, and enjoy your week.
Fire up, Michigan!